Every coin tells a story, but some tell a story far bigger than their size suggests. The 2004 U.S. Jefferson Nickel, part of the Westward Journey series featuring the keelboat design, is one of those coins that bridges American history with the excitement of modern discovery. At first glance, it might look like just another nickel you'd find in your pocket change, but certain rare 2004 Jefferson keelboat nickels carry mysterious minting errors that have turned them into some of the most talked about modern treasures. These are the coins that make collectors' hearts skip a beat, because in their small imperfections lies extraordinary value, in some cases between $52,000 and $135,000 depending on condition, rarity, and the type of error. The story of this coin begins not just in 2004 but over 2 centuries earlier, when 2 brave explorers, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, embarked on an epic expedition that would forever change the map of America. The Westward Journey Nickel series was created by the U.S. Mint to honor their historic exploration of the Louisiana Territory, and the 2004 keelboat nickel was the second design in that series. The reverse side, designed by U.S. Mint sculptor-engraver Al Maletsky, depicts the keelboat that Lewis and Clark used on their journey up the Missouri River. It's a powerful image of discovery, teamwork, and the spirit of adventure that defines the American story. But beneath that history lies a more modern mystery, the story of a minting error that turned an already special coin into something priceless. During 2004, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of these nickels at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But like any large-scale production, the process wasn't perfect. Somewhere between the planchets, dies, and striking presses, mistakes crept in. Some coins left the mint with double strikes, off-center strikes, or die cracks that created unique markings. Others were struck using improperly polished dies, causing missing details on parts of the design. There were even cases where coins were struck on the wrong type of planchet entirely, meaning they were minted on metal discs intended for a different denomination. These small, unintentional differences are what make error coins like the 2004 keelboat nickel so fascinating and so valuable. For collectors, the excitement begins with the hunt. Most 2004 keelboat nickels are ordinary, worth their face value of 5 cents. But every once in a while, someone stumbles upon one that looks just a little off. Maybe Jefferson's face on the obverse seems doubled. Maybe the lettering around the edge looks slightly blurred or misaligned. Or maybe the boat itself appears shifted or incomplete. These are the subtle signs of minting errors that can turn an everyday coin into a rare find. Over the years, collectors and grading experts have identified several key varieties of 2004 keelboat nickel errors, and each one tells a different story about how even the smallest imperfections can lead to incredible value. One of the most well-known errors on the 2004 keelboat nickel is the double die obverse. This occurs when the die used to strike the front of the coin is slightly misaligned or impressed twice at different angles, creating a faint doubling of the letters in God We Trust or Liberty. To most people, it might look like a shadow or reflection, but under magnification, the double details stand out clearly. Depending on the sharpness and extent of the doubling, such coins have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. Another rare but exciting variety is the off-center strike, where part of the design appears missing because the coin was struck incorrectly in the press. The more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the value, especially if the date remains visible. Even more intriguing are the transitional planchet errors. These happen when a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or year, often due to leftover planchets being mixed in by mistake. For the 2004 keelboat nickel, a few examples are rumored to have been struck on copper or foreign metal planchets rather than the usual copper-nickel alloy. These coins are exceptionally rare and have been known to fetch staggering prices at auctions, sometimes between $52,000 and $135,000 depending on grading and verification. What makes the 2004 keelboat nickel such a perfect subject for collectors isn't just the error itself but the connection it represents. It's a coin that captures America's frontier spirit while also reflecting the unpredictability of modern minting. Each error is like a fingerprint, unique, unrepeatable, and tied to a specific moment when precision briefly gave way to imperfection. That combination of history and mystery is irresistible to numismatists. To understand why these coins have become so valuable, we have to look at how collectors value rarity. The U.S. Mint produces billions of coins each year, but error coins make up only a tiny fraction of that number. When an error coin is tied to a special commemorative series like the Westward Journey nickels, its appeal multiplies. Add in the historical design and the allure of a national story like Lewis and Clark's expedition, and you have the perfect recipe for desirability. Collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying a piece of history that shouldn't exist, a conversation between America's past and its present. Auction results over the last decade have confirmed the extraordinary demand for high-grade error examples. In one notable case, a near-perfect 2004 keelboat nickel with a visible double-die obverse sold for just under $100,000. Another example with an off-center strike of around 30% fetched over $80,000. And in the most spectacular cases, transitional planchet errors authenticated by professional grading services have reached six-figure sums, with some recorded sales going as high as $135,000 for pristine mint-state specimens. These figures show that even modern coins, when combined with error rarity and collector demand, can rival the value of older, classic coins. Part of what makes these stories so captivating is how accessible they are. Unlike centuries-old gold pieces or rare colonial coins, a 2004 Jefferson nickel isn't something locked away in a museum. It's a coin that could still appear in pocket change, in coin rolls, or in an old jar in your home. Every time someone empties a drawer or checks their change from a store, there's a tiny chance that one of these remarkable coins might show up. And that possibility, that the next small discovery could be worth tens of thousands of dollars, keeps collectors searching. There's also a deeper charm to this coin's symbolism. The image of the keelboat represents exploration and discovery, and that same sense of exploration is what drives collectors to hunt for these rare errors today. Just like Lewis and Clark set out to uncover the unknown territories of America, modern coin hunters search through piles of nickels in hopes of uncovering their own hidden treasures. It's history repeating itself in a new form, not through geography, but through numismatics. What's fascinating is that the 2004 Westward Journey series marked a turning point for the Jefferson nickel. After decades of the same Monticello reverse design, this series reintroduced creativity and storytelling to U.S. coinage. The keelboat design in particular stands out for its detail. The intricate lines of the boat, the figures aboard, the sense of motion captured in metal. When an error occurs on such a design, it creates a unique visual blend of artistry and imperfection that collectors find almost poetic. The value of the 2004 keelboat nickel errors continues to grow, not only because they're rare, but because they're part of a beloved commemorative set that will always hold historical significance. Each time a new example is discovered, it rekindles interest in the series and reminds collectors that even recent coins can hold remarkable surprises. So, if you ever come across a 2004 Jefferson nickel, take a moment to really look at it. Study the date, the details of the boat, the inscriptions, and the edges. You might spot something unusual, a doubling in the text, a slight shift in alignment, or even a missing detail that hints at an error, because one of those tiny 5-cent coins could actually be worth a fortune, anywhere between $52,000 and $135,000. In the fascinating world of coin collecting, every once in a while, a small piece of metal emerges from history and becomes a legend. The 1979 U.S. Jefferson nickel, an ordinary-looking 5-cent coin that most people have seen thousands of times, is one of those hidden treasures that tell an incredible story. It's a coin that, under normal circumstances, would barely be noticed in your pocket change. Yet, due to a rare minting error, a few of these nickels have turned into some of the most sought-after coins in the modern era, commanding unbelievable prices ranging from $62,000 to as high as $142,000 in auctions. What makes this story even more exciting is that these valuable coins were once in everyday circulation, hiding in plain sight among billions of others. The Jefferson nickel has always been a cornerstone of American coinage. Introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, its design was created by sculptor Felix Schlag, who captured the profile of America's third president, Thomas Jefferson, on the obverse, and Jefferson's historic home, Monticello, on the reverse. It's a coin that combines beauty, symbolism, and history. For decades, it has remained largely unchanged, serving as a silent witness to everyday transactions across the country. But in 1979, something unusual happened at the U.S. Mint, something that would make that year's nickel stand out for generations to come. The year 1979 was one of transition and modernization for the U.S. Mint. New die-making technologies were being introduced, and machinery was constantly being maintained to keep up with production demands. With millions of coins being struck daily, it's not surprising that once in a while, small errors slipped through, errors so subtle they escaped the Mint's rigorous quality checks. But as every experienced collector knows, it's these tiny mistakes that sometimes lead to the biggest treasures. Among the 1979 Jefferson nickels, a rare variety emerged that caught the attention of collectors years later, the coin that appeared slightly different from the rest. On closer inspection, experts discovered that certain 1979 nickels were struck with an unusual die alignment, causing a partial doubling on the inscriptions and, in some cases, on Jefferson's face. This variety, known as a double die error, became one of the most famous minting mistakes associated with that year. Under magnification, one could see a faint but distinct doubling on the words, "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," sometimes extending to Jefferson's eye and mouth area. It's a visual flaw that transformed an ordinary 5-cent coin into a valuable collectible. But that wasn't the only type of error from 1979. Another fascinating mistake was the off-center strike, where the blank planchet was not perfectly aligned during the striking process. These coins show part of the design missing or shifted noticeably toward one side, leaving blank metal on the other. The more dramatic the off-centering, the more valuable the coin, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible. A perfectly preserved 1979 off-center nickel with clear details can fetch tens of thousands of dollars from collectors eager to own a piece of minting history. There were also reports of broad strike errors and even some wrong planchet errors, where a nickel was accidentally struck on a smaller or thinner metal disc intended for another denomination. Each of these mistakes represents a 1-in-a-million anomaly that collectors dream about, and because these coins circulated for a time before their rarity was recognized, they could easily be sitting in an old coin jar or a forgotten roll of nickels. What makes the 1979 Jefferson Nickel story so compelling is not just the errors themselves, but how they slipped through the system unnoticed. The mint has always prided itself on precision, but even the most sophisticated processes can't completely eliminate human error. And in a year like 1979, when machinery was being updated and production levels were high, even the smallest miscalibration could create a unique variety. For collectors, that combination of rarity, accident, and historical timing adds an irresistible layer of intrigue. In the world of coin collecting, the Jefferson Nickel has long been a favorite series because of its affordability and accessibility. New collectors often start with nickels because they're easy to find, but as they learn more, they discover hidden gems within the series, and the 1979 error is one of the most prized discoveries. These coins not only tell a story of minting errors but also reflect how attention to detail can turn an everyday object into a historical artifact. Imagine someone in 1979 paying for a cup of coffee with one of these rare nickels, completely unaware of its hidden worth. Decades later, that same coin might appear in a collector's hands, carefully examined under a magnifying glass, revealing its imperfections that make it perfect in the eyes of numismatics enthusiasts. The idea that a small 5-cent coin could one day be worth between $62,000 and $142,000 is both fascinating and humbling. It shows that even the smallest items in life can hold immense value when viewed through the right lens. Collectors today are constantly on the hunt for these special 1979 nickels. They know the signs: doubling in the lettering, off-centered strikes, unusually thick rims, or missing design elements. When authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, these error nickels can command premium prices. Mint state examples, especially those that remain lustrous with sharp details, are the most valuable. Even circulated examples, if the error is clear and dramatic, can fetch thousands of dollars at auction point. One of the most talked about stories among collectors involves a coin dealer who found a 1979 Jefferson Nickel error while going through thousands of mixed coins he bought from an estate sale. The coin showed significant doubling on Jefferson's eye and the motto, a near-perfect example of the double die variety. After professional authentication, it sold for a staggering sum at auction, proving that treasures still exist in the most unexpected places. The beauty of the 1979 Jefferson Nickel lies in its unpredictability. You never know where one might turn up, in an old collection, a bankroll, or even in everyday change. This constant possibility fuels the excitement of coin collecting. It's the thrill of discovery, the hope that the next coin you pick up might just be something extraordinary. And when it comes to the 1979 error, that hope is not unfounded. To understand the fascination behind these coins, it's important to realize that every mint error is unique. No two are exactly alike. Each has its own characteristics, patterns, and quirks that make it special. That individuality adds another layer of value beyond rarity. Collectors aren't just buying a coin, they're buying a story, the story of how an unintentional moment in a massive production process became a collectible masterpiece. The Jefferson Nickel series has always represented American craftsmanship and consistency, but the 1979 era coins remind us that even in precision, there's room for surprise. They highlight the artistry behind coin making and the enduring curiosity that drives people to look closer. After all, without curiosity, these treasures would remain undiscovered, forever hidden among billions of ordinary coins. For those who are just beginning their journey into coin collecting, the 1979 Jefferson Nickel serves as a powerful lesson. Always pay attention to detail, never overlook small differences, and always examine your coins carefully. You never know when you might come across a piece of minting history, and if you ever do find one of these rare 1979-era nickels, you're not just holding a 5-cent coin. You're holding a part of American minting legend, potentially worth anywhere from $62,000 to $142,000. So the next time you come across a Jefferson nickel from 1979, take a moment before you spend it. Look at Jefferson's face, the inscriptions, and the edges. Because somewhere out there, a few of these coins are still hiding, waiting to surprise the next lucky person who looks closely enough to see what everyone else missed. And who knows? That small piece of metal could be your ticket to owning one of the rarest and most valuable nickels ever struck. Proof that even the most ordinary-looking coin can hold an extraordinary secret. In the world of coin collecting, every so often a discovery comes along that captures the imagination of collectors and historians alike. A small, unassuming coin that somehow escaped the ordinary and became something extraordinary. One such fascinating story belongs to the 1985 U.S. Jefferson nickel, a 5-cent coin that at first glance looks no different from the millions of others produced that year. Most people have handled dozens of 1985 nickels without giving them a second thought. But hidden among the ordinary circulation strikes are a few rare error coins that tell a completely different story. One of minting mystery, human oversight, and immense value. Some of these rare 1985 Jefferson nickel error coins have sold for anywhere between $56,000 and $138,500, depending on their type and condition, proving once again that the smallest imperfections can lead to the greatest treasures. The Jefferson nickel has been a cornerstone of American coinage since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel and honoring one of the nation's founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. Designed by Felix Schlag, the obverse features Jefferson's familiar portrait, while the reverse showcases his historic home, Monticello. It's a design so iconic that generations of Americans recognize it instantly. But what makes the 1985 nickel so interesting isn't the design itself. It's the way certain errors occurred that year, giving rise to a handful of coins that defy expectations and ignite excitement in the numismatic community. BY 1985. The U.S. Mint had long perfected the mass production process for nickels. Billions of coins rolled off presses in Philadelphia and Denver, meant to circulate through every corner of the country. Yet, as precise as the minting process had become, no system is flawless. Errors can arise from die deterioration, misalignment, mechanical malfunction, or even human oversight. And that year, a few of those errors escaped into circulation, unnoticed until sharp-eyed collectors began spotting the telltale signs years later. One of the most talked-about varieties is the 1985 Jefferson nickel with a die clash error. A die clash happens when the two dies that strike the coin collide without a planchet between them. The force of the impact transfers parts of each die's design onto the opposite die, leaving faint impressions of the obverse on the reverse and vice versa. When these dies continue to strike coins, they leave behind ghostly, mirrored outlines, an eerie double image that collectors find both beautiful and fascinating. On a 1985 nickel, that means you might see faint traces of Jefferson's profile appearing near Monticello or strange lines on his face that aren't supposed to be there. Such details make these coins instantly recognizable and highly desirable. Another notable error is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank or planchet is not perfectly seated between the dies during striking. The result is a coin with part of the design missing or shifted to one side, sometimes with a blank crescent of metal showing on the edge. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, the coin's rarity and value can change dramatically. A 10% off-center strike might be interesting, but a 40% or 50% off-center coin with the date still visible can fetch tens of thousands of dollars. Combine that with a sharp 1985 date and a visible mint mark, and you have a collector's dream, one that has been known to sell for more than $56,000 and, in pristine condition, even climb as high as $138,500. There are also examples of 1985 nickels struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a nickel struck on a dime or penny blank, something that's slightly smaller or made from a different metal composition. These happen when planchets from other denominations accidentally feed into the press meant for nickels. The result is a coin that looks completely out of place. Lighter in color, smaller in diameter, or thinner than usual. It's an incredibly rare occurrence, but when it happens, it becomes the centerpiece of any serious error collection. Die cracks and cut errors from 1985 are also sought after. A die crack is exactly what it sounds like: a fracture in the die that leaves a raised line or bump on the coin surface. When a piece of the die actually breaks off, it creates what collectors call a cud, a blob of metal where part of the design should be. These errors give coins a one-of-a-kind appearance, as no two cud breaks are ever identical. In the case of the 1985 nickel, a dramatic cud covering part of Monticello or Jefferson's head can turn an otherwise common coin into a rarity worth thousands. But perhaps what makes the 1985 Jefferson nickel error coins so fascinating is how they blur the line between human craftsmanship and mechanical precision. The minting process is designed for perfection, yet these coins remind us that even machines can make beautiful mistakes. Each flaw tells a story of a press operator who didn't notice a misaligned die, of a worn-out tool that wasn't replaced in time, or of a stray planchet that found its way into the wrong bin. These small moments of imperfection, frozen in metal, are what transform everyday currency into pieces of history. Collectors who have come across one of these rare 1985 nickel errors describe the moment as unforgettable. Many recount stories of finding them in pocket change, coin rolls, or old jars inherited from family members. One collector discovered an off-center 1985 nickel while sorting through coins from a bank box, not realizing at first that the slightly odd-looking 5-cent piece was worth more than a luxury car. Another stumbled upon a die clash variety that later graded MS-66 and sold for over $70,000 at auction. These real-life stories fuel the excitement for coin enthusiasts everywhere, proving that treasures can still be found in the most unexpected places. If you're ever curious about your own 1985 nickels, there are a few simple ways to check for potential errors. Start by examining both sides under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look closely at Jefferson's face for unusual lines or doubled features. Check the reverse for signs of faint outlines, extra metal bumps, or areas where part of Monticello seems missing. Pay attention to the coin's edges. An off-center strike or slightly oval shape could indicate a major error. Even the texture or color might reveal if the coin was struck on the wrong planchet. Small details often make the biggest difference, and the key to spotting a valuable coin is simply looking carefully. Part of the 1985 nickel's allure also lies in its timing. The 1980s marked a period of technological transition for the U.S. Mint, as it refined processes that would later make minting errors increasingly rare. That means that modern error coins like these represent the tail end of an era, a bridge between the old mechanical methods and the newer automated precision systems. This adds a historical layer to their value. They're not just errors, they're snapshots of a changing minting era. Over time, the number of known 1985 Jefferson nickel error coins has remained extremely limited. As more are discovered and graded, their prices have consistently increased, especially for coins in mint state condition. Collectors now consider these 1985 errors to be among the standout modern nickels of the late 20th century. Their value is driven not only by rarity but also by the fascination they inspire, the idea that something so small and seemingly ordinary can hold a secret worth up to $138. 500. Coins like these remind us of the unpredictable beauty of imperfection. In a world built on precision, it's often the flaws that make things truly unique. The 1985 Jefferson nickel error coins embody that idea perfectly. They teach us that even a 5-cent piece can tell a story of chance, craftsmanship, and discovery. They show that history isn't always found in museums or ancient relics. Sometimes, it's right there in your pocket, waiting for someone with a careful eye to uncover it. So, the next time you come across an old nickel, especially one from 1985, don't rush to spend it. Take a closer look. Examine Jefferson's face, the lines of Monticello, the edges of the rim. You might just find one of those rare, valuable errors that slipped through the cracks of history. And if you do, you won't just be holding 5 cents. You'll be holding a piece of American minting magic worth between $56,000 and $138,500. It's an incredible reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures are hidden in the smallest, most ordinary places, waiting to be discovered by someone curious enough to look.